Hello and welcome to our regular Ubuntu Community Team Q&A. My name's Alan Pope and this is Daniel Holbach.
Hello.
And we're here once again to answer your questions about Ubuntu, anything related to Ubuntu and the things around it. If you want to ask questions, then the best way to do that is to point an IRC client at Freenode and join the Ubuntu -on-air IRC channel. If you don't want to install an IRC client or you'd rather use a browser, then just go to ubuntuonair.com and you'll see the video in the top half of the screen and the chat box underneath it. Pick a username, connect, and then you'll see the same chat everyone else does. Ask your questions in there. If you prefix them with the word question in uppercase, then that gets highlighted in our IRC clients, so we can pick out the questions from the chatter. We welcome questions from anywhere and everywhere about anything and everything. We can't answer everything, so if we can't, but we know who might know the answer, then while one of us is filling for time, the other one might go and ping someone on IRC to find out the answer. This happens surprisingly often. Or alternatively, we might point you in the direction of somewhere else that's a better place to ask your question. If you want to know more about these sessions and when they happen, the best thing to do is follow the various social media accounts for Ubuntu On Air. There's a Twitter account, Ubuntu On Air, there's a Google+, and you can also just subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you're watching this later on, then unfortunately you can't ask questions, but you can at least listen into everybody else's. Have I missed anything out?
I don't know of. It was fairly accurate.
Good, good. So how are you? What have you been up to then, Daniel?
Good, good. Yeah, I've been working on Snappy stuff. Have been helping people, looking at upstreaming some things, looking at some build failures, like all kinds of stuff already to Snappy. Things are good. And I might look at some training materials next. So should be coming in the next few weeks.
Awesome. I spent a bit of last week in Germany, in Heidelberg, and we had a Snappy sprint where a whole bunch of Canonical employees who work on or around Snappy and Snapcraft got together, had a whole bunch of hourly sessions where we discussed various parts of improving Snapcraft and Snappy and the roadmap and plans for future development of Snappy and Snapcraft. And one of the fun parts was we got to invite a bunch of community people along as well. So there were people from VLC, Elementary, Ubuntu Mate. There were external people who weren't part of any particular distribution. There were people from the KDE project there. It was really good to have such a mix of people, and some of the sessions were quite fiery. There was one in particular where there were lots of opinions being thrown around the room, and you know, people with different perspectives from different desktops, different projects, all weighing in on how they think things should work and how things should be improved in the future. And you know, at the end of it, we figured out all the what I think most of the right answers to all the questions we had in the room. But it was yeah, it was awesome. It was really good to hang out with such a bunch of cool people. So that was good. Should we crack on with some of the questions? We've got quite a few.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I think this is the first time we've been on time and we've had like a queue of questions before we even started. So
excellent. So let's get cracking then. So the first question, or the first bunch of questions that have been pasted into the IRC channel are from Blue Beardy Bear, who says that won't be able to watch live, but they thought they'd leave some questions in IRC and then they can watch it later on. That's a brilliant idea. You can always drop by the Ubuntu On Air IRC channel and throw questions in there just before we go live, and then you know we can look at them later. So first question is, up until now nobody's seen the new dashboard design of Unity 8 in desktop mode. What are you hiding? Yeah, Daniel, what are you hiding?
I'm not involved with any Unity dashboard, so
so I asked for clarification on what dashboard we know. I think what they mean is the dash, you know, the application launcher. And I don't think it's necessarily that we're hiding anything. You can generally just pull the latest trunk of Unity 8 and all the associated packages, build it, run it, and you'll see what the current state is. It is true that the design has been iterated on a number of times. I don't know what the current state of that design is because I don't work either in the design team or in the Unity 8 team. But if you were to drop by Ubuntu Unity, which is the IRC channel that the Unity developers hang out in, they're most welcome in providing information and support and details about what they're currently working on. So maybe that's the best place to ask that question. But I don't think there's any hiding or anything. I think it's just stuff's not finished, which is usually the way.
And you don't even need to pull the source. Like, obviously, if you're interested in the source, you can do that. But stuff is also automatic. All the approved merge proposals are automatically landed in the distro. So even either you're on Yakety 1610 or in Xenial, you need to use the overlay PPA, and then you can just try it out. You get almost daily updates of everything.
Sweet. Next question, also from Bluebeardy Bear. Will there be an indicator in Unity 8 when an app is accessing my microphone, webcam, or recording my screen? That's interesting. I've not seen any indicators that do that, third-party ones. I've seen ones that tell you when your caps lock is on or something like that, which is useful for laptops like mine where there's no light on the caps lock key. But that's an interesting suggestion. I like that.
There's a bug report for it. I can't remember what the state of it is, but this is being considered. I
think one of the tricky things about this, and one reason why people like to have control over that, is obviously the privacy. They don't want something recording them when they don't want them to, or their webcam being used when they don't want them to. And it's a bit tricky because having an indicator just means you've got a piece of software that sits there, and if your machine has been compromised and it's using your webcam without your knowledge, then it could potentially suppress the indicator as well. So while it might be useful for some use cases, I'm not sure it's useful for all of them. But yeah, interesting. I've not seen that bug report, but I'm sure someone in the chat will look it up. Next question. Will Ubuntu with Unity 8 and Snappy eventually lead in a rolling release on the desktop? What do you think, Daniel?
I think it really depends what you're after. If you're after up-to-date Leaf applications, so stuff that other packages don't depend on, I think then that's very much going to be like it. For example, we've seen interest from the VLC people, like they're maintaining a Snap now, and for them it's perfect. They could even hook it up with their CIs or whatever. They release something new, automatically they publish a new version in the store. And I could imagine that we're going to see more and more of that. So we're actually very close already. So this doesn't even depend on Unity 8. That's a separate topic.
Yeah, I think it's kind of getting close to being possible to be rolling if you want it to be. Like you still can run a traditional stable, things don't change every day kind of, and by change I don't mean break, but just things don't get updated all the time. You can still do that with the classic Debian desktop. And even you potentially could with a Snappy based desktop if you stick to stable channels, because we have a concept of channels where you can choose to subscribe to stable updates only, or you could choose something less stable, something that maybe updates daily or maybe more frequently. So I think it's possible to get close to a rolling style release with Snappy and Unity 8, yes, but I don't think it would be like the default for everyone. Right.
Yeah, as Alan said, you can use channels. So, for example, if you were interested in, let's say, the GIMP from Git, then you could just use their Edge channel. And the nice thing is that even if a newer GIMP should depend on a very recent GTK or GIMP, they can just bundle it for their Snap, and it doesn't break everything else. So just in case there's an issue somewhere, that's not a problem. So I think Snappy with the concept of bundling libraries gets rolling right, because you don't want the crack of the day for everything. Like,
right.
Yeah.
And even if you did choose one day to try out GIMP, I mean, we're using GIMP as an example, but it could be anything, it could be Firefox, Thunderbird, or whatever. But if you try an application on their Edge channel and it turns out it's not for you, it's the cheese has been moved too far, then maybe you could just uninstall it and install the stable one. And when you uninstall, it's all gone. It's not like there's little bits of libraries all over your system. You uninstall a snap, it's gone, which is really, really nice. That's a nice. I think the people who like to have a clean system where they know exactly what's on the system, they know where it is, they know where it came from. People who like that and are more, fussed about those kind of things will appreciate the ability to, atomically put something on their system, and if they don't want it, atomically remove it, which is cool.
It is.
Next question is from Blue Beardy Bear again. Can we have a space where we can ask questions without being live on this stream, like a forum thread or something? Sure. If you make one and tell us where it is, we'll look there. Maybe create a Google Doc, or if you don't like Google, create a doc somewhere else. Maybe use an Etherpad, anything you like. Just, if you've created a bunch of questions and, you want to put them somewhere, paste them somewhere, give us the link, and we'll have a look at them. Next question. If allowed apps can access my whole home directory, wouldn't it be better if every app gets its own folder in home and one folder that's shared between all snaps? Maybe also a secure file picker solution, which lets you decide which file the app is allowed to see. I'm no expert. That was just a thought. This sounds familiar, doesn't it?
It does.
Because that's kind of what happens. So each snap is, when you install a snap, it's delivered to your machine as a read-only squashfs file, which gets mounted. And so you can see the files that are in it mounted under the snap directory off the root of your file system. And so you can see all the files that are in there. But in addition to which, you can have a writable area in your home directory, which is also called snap. So it'll be /home/your username/snap. Then the application name, so a separate folder for each application, which is writable. So yeah, we kind of do have that. There are also interfaces that allow you to access other parts of the system, and there will be more of those as time goes on, as requirements are known for each application and set of applications to access those things. Did I get that right?
Yeah, absolutely. I wasn't quite sure how this was going to be integrated into the UI at some stage. So the question was also about a secure file picker. So I'm not quite I don't know what the solution is there.
Yeah, I know there were some discussions about that at the sprint last week, about how you resolve that, so that how the camera application can save files to a location that other applications can pick up, and how the email client can pick up the photos that you just took with the webcam, that kind of thing. And I think there's still some ongoing discussions about how that will all play out. But yes, that's kind of on the roadmap. Okay, next question.
Next set of questions is from Simon, right?
Yep.
All right. First one is, when is David Caillé going to become an Ubuntu member?
So, yeah, we asked him that as well. That's up to him. So, we like everyone who works on Ubuntu, if they feel it's appropriate, to apply for membership. We don't pressure them too much to do that, but it seems like a good idea. There is a little bit of peer pressure within the team to nudge people to become an Ubuntu member. But it is possible to work on Ubuntu for a long time, and even work at Canonical on Ubuntu for a long time and not be an Ubuntu member. That is possible, and there are a few people who have just never applied for membership. And David is one of those people who spends his time actually working rather than applying for membership. So you'd have to ask him that.
Yeah, please do ask him.
Cool. Next question from Simon. What is Ubuntu planning with Bug Day? Smiley face. I don't know. What is Ubuntu? This sounds like a rhetorical question that Simon knows the answer to and is asking if we know the answer to. And I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, we should get Simon on the show to talk about.
Uh-oh, I think I've almost lost Daniel.
Let everyone know when it is, what to do.
Yeah, leave a comment in the IRC, Simon, and we'll mention it. Next question from Simon. What is your stance on dropping i386 support? What do you think about that?
I think we talked about this like last week or the week before. It was a similar question. It looks like the general feedback is that it's still some time to go until there. It looks like a few people are still running 32-bit machines, but I guess at some stage they can stay on an LTS, which is supported for another 5 years. I don't know. Like I've been on 64-bit for 10 years or something. So
yeah, I mean, all of my machines that I use on a regular basis are 64-bit, except one of my servers, which is 32-bit. But as I understand it, the plan, the current discussion is around keeping 32-bit server packages and server images, because there are, small VPSs, small servers that don't really benefit from running a 64-bit version. And so it makes sense for there to still be a 32-bit version. So I don't think it's completely going away. Personally, I think it's not a terrible idea to move things forward. I can see why some people are upset because, it's the thing they run on their system. And, when you take that away, that's frustrating. But like you say, there's a lengthy support on the current version, which has i386 packages and i386 images, so it's still supported for a long while.
I don't know what this is going to mean to 32-bit applications. I mean, they should still run, and stuff like Wine and Skype and all that stuff should still work fine on 60-bit. So it's not too much of an issue.
Yeah, typically when we deprecate something, there's someone or some people allocated to figure out, what the impact of this is and figure out if there are any packages that would be broken by this. And no doubt that will happen as we work towards removing i386 images.
What a lot of people probably don't realize is how much work it takes to have a separate architecture. Tens of thousands of packages. Sometimes just one of them fails and others depend on it, and it's something intermittent, and you have to go and look at it in other something is written in assembly or something, and you need to figure out how to port this. Like there's so much stuff involved to get it working. It's just crazy.
Yeah.
So,
and it's
I
also
can totally understand the desire to less.
There's also, from the QA point of view, multiple images that you have to test. And, if there's fewer and fewer people who are actually using this, the amount of workload in order to test something that's used by such a small number of people becomes disproportionate. And it seems like not worth doing. So that's a factor as well. Next question from Simon. There's been a lot of talk about Snappy, but how do I get my hands dirty with Debian/Ubuntu packages? You know all about this, don't you, Daniel? Or have you flushed all of that information out of your head now?
I forgot all about it.
Good move.
No, take a look at packaging.ubuntu.com. We have the documentation that should give you a good start. And then there's the Ubuntu Motu mailing list and an IRC channel. So yeah, you can also find help there.
Cool. Simon is the master of leading questions. Next question is, what do you think of LXQT? I have no opinion of it. I think it's great that it exists, but I've never seen it. So I've never used it. I don't plan on using it on any of my systems. So it's good that it exists, and I'm sure there are plenty of people who do like it.
Same here. And the Ubuntu Bug Day. If you go to ubuntu.me/ubuntu-a, you can read all about it. It's today. So if you're a Ubuntu fan and want to get involved, or you're just generally interested in helping out with bugs and getting started, now is a good time. And they're also going to have an air session later on. It should be between 19 and 20 UTC, which is just in a few hours. So if you're still awake at the time, check out what they have to say, and I'm sure they're going to tell you how to get started.
Cool. Next question. What is going on with the Code of Conduct revisions? So I guess this is the question is related to comments that have been made about the Code of Conduct needing to be updated for to explicitly define what we think is acceptable behavior, right?
Right. Yeah, there were a few comments before by NPT, I think Paul Thomas. He sent a mail to the discussion, moved on from there. We also talked about it at the online summit, and it just takes a long time to I just remember when we went from the Code of Conduct from version 1 to version 2, it took ages to get it right to back, and that's what's still happening.
Okay. Oh, Simon, this is a good one. What IRC client do you use and why? So I use IRC or IRSSI, and I use it because I like it.
Right. I'm using HexChat because I don't like, /w something stuff, but pointy clicky stuff. And I just got used to the to the keyboard bindings and everything. They're the same in XChat GNOME and XChat and all the others. So yeah, that's what I'm used to.
Yeah, the reason I like IRC is because it runs in a terminal, and so I can get access to it from anywhere, which is quite nice. But it's also a bad thing because it means sometimes I access IRC when I shouldn't. Like 2 weeks ago, I was on holiday and someone pinged me an IRC, and I replied to them, and it was work related, and it could have waited, but I'm a danger to myself. So yeah, it's good and bad. Simon asks, have you ever had Snappy popcorn? It's really good. I had no idea Snappy popcorn existed.
I've heard of it somewhere, but I haven't tried it.
I have, however, many years ago, had Red Hat kernels, which was some promotional popcorn given away at some trade show many, many years ago. And I think maybe it was even before Ubuntu existed. I used to run Red Hat, then I ran Debian, then I ran Ubuntu. And I picked up somewhere some Red Hat kernels. And it was just like one of those microwave popcorn things that had Red Hat branding all over it. Put it in the microwave and you get popcorn. Yeah. So yeah, it's a good branding thing to have Snappy popcorn. So yeah, that's a good idea. We should do that. Next question is from Kluinka, who asks, how does Snappy handle AppArmor and SE Linux policies?
So all the AppArmor stuff is integrated into SnapConfine and Snappy itself, and you can add additional AppArmor policies in the I can't remember what the file is called. Sorry about that. But yeah, AppArmor is in Ubuntu right now is the way to get exceptions, also to how interfaces are defined, and SE Linux was talked about at the sprint as well, right?
Yeah, I wasn't in those sessions, but I believe there were discussions about having Snap work on SE Linux enabled distros. Yeah.
That's the answer then, right?
Yep. I don't know where that has progressed yet, but I'm sure it will. What's the next question? Andrew Hazen. Go for it.
Who has the best beard in the community?
So last week when I was in Heidelberg, I was sat next to someone, and while they were talking to me, I couldn't stop looking at his beard. So I would nominate Evan Dandria as tidiest beard in the community. It's as his mouth was moving, I stopped listening to what he was saying because his beard was just so nice. So yeah, Evan gets my vote.
Don't have an opinion.
Okay. Next question. Danielle L asks, when will Unity 8 be the default desktop environment? Any chance until the next Ubuntu LTS? So we get this question a lot, and I think Mark Shuttleworth answered it specifically in one of his Q&As, where he said when the community decides that it's ready. So that's the short answer, is when it's ready. Whether that will be before or after the next LTS, I do not know. Guest 39653, the 39,653rd guest, asks, what does the production timetable or roadmap ramp up look like for US accessible Ubuntu phones? I do not know. Sorry. It's a question we get a lot on here, and I just don't know about the future of phones in the US at all. Sorry. Next question. Andrew asks, I heard at the Snappy Sprint there was talk of content sharing. Example, content shared runtimes platforms. Can you explain how these will work and how we can expect Snappy GTK Qt to do content sharing snaps? Do you know much about this?
So basically, how it's going to work is that when you put together basically a content snap, I don't know if that's the final name for it, but let's just say it's the content snap, right? You put the library in there, all the files it needs, everything, and you set the snap type to content or whatever it's going to be called, and you can then declare that other snaps basically depend on this, or that they need this content to be run.
So kind of like a library snap where you could have a common set of libraries. Let's say, for example, the elementary desktop has a bunch of elementary applications, and they have some libraries, some components which are specific to that application, and only that application needs them. Those would be inside the snap of that application. But then there might be a whole bunch of common libraries and features that would be used by all of the applications. And so that could be a common content library snap that others will depend on.
Absolutely. So basically, it's going to be a snap like any other. It's just going to be of a different type, and that's all there is to it.
Cool. Next question. Nick011, do you know who from the Ubuntu community, not only Canonical, is coming to the UbuCon EU?
Millions of people.
So this is happening in November in Essen in Germany, is the next one. And I don't know who's going because I don't think we've, audited everyone who's coming. It's going to be more of a, if you want to come along, you come along. Excuse me. But I know there are people obviously who are organizing this, but I don't know who from the community is choosing to go along. However, someone from the community has just replied and said they're going. So there's one to add to your list of people who are going.
Yeah, you can also take a look at ubucon.org and then browse through the list of upcoming ubucons, and then have a look at the speakers who are going to be there, because there's quite a few already. Canonical, non-canonical people, loads of them. So, and we're going to be there as well. Right, Pokey?
Yes, I'm going to be there. Absolutely. Never miss a trip to go to Germany. Absolutely. Next question. HTML5 question: could Ubuntu benefit from the recent layoffs at Cyanogen? Well, it's unfortunate that Cyanogen are letting people go, and those people, I hope they find gainful employment or contracts somewhere soon, because it's a horrible situation to be in. I don't know if we're looking for people who are working in the areas that Cyanogen people work in. I don't know exactly what the demographic of people who've been let go from Cyanogen are, but our recruitment page is pretty easy to find. If you Google canonical careers, you'll find it. It's top of the list. So if you know anyone who has been let go from Cyanogen, throw them the link. There may be roles there that might be interesting to them. Next question. Stephen B asks, when will the MX6 Ubuntu edition be available? That's a question you're going to have to ask Meizu. I don't know, is the answer. Again, as we always say, we don't do product announcements on this Q&A. That's up to manufacturers, so you'd have to ask the manufacturer, I'm afraid. And in this case, that's a Meizu product. Guest 39653 asks, I've enjoyed writing desktop applications on the Electron framework. Has the Snappy team considered how such JavaScript desktop applications could become snaps? You know this, don't you, Daniel?
I know that somebody packaged Atom, somebody else packaged, what was it? Also something Electron related. It was Jamie Bennett. It's on his blog. And there's
did he make a part for it, or was it just like centrally packaged with one YAML?
I think he packaged one of them, and it's something you could probably very easily reuse. I think a lot of these Electron apps use Node.js, so we have a plugin for that, and it's quite easy to use. You can basically just go Node packages and then specify the list of packages you need, and it will pull them all in and do everything for you. So things are looking quite good. And if there's anything we need to add to support to make your Electron stuff work, just let us know.
Yeah, absolutely. There's the best place to have a look, actually, for examples, is the Snappy Playpen. If you look on GitHub, Snappy Playpen, and look at the Atom one. I think Atom is in there. I think so. I think Chris Wayne made the Atom one. But have a look through there, and you can also join us on Gitter, gitter.im. There's a Snappy Playpen chat room there. If you want to continue that conversation there, then feel free to do so. I think there's been quite a lot of people who've been interested in packaging up Electron apps, because there's quite a lot of cool things. There's, desktop chat applications like Slack and like Gitter. And so I think it's kind of a popular thing that people would want to see exercised well with Snappy. So yeah, get in touch with us if you have any trouble, and we'll certainly point you in the right direction. Andrew asks, as Snappy is going cross-distro, are tools that are Ubuntu prefixed expected to be implemented per distro, or will they be renamed, merged into the Snap tool itself? Such as there is Ubuntu App Launch. Does Fedora need to implement this, or will it become something like Snap Run?
I think Ubuntu app launch is related to Unity 8 and the life cycle management stuff we do on the phone, right?
Yeah, what's the launcher that gets called by binaries in Snap bin?
I think that's all the stuff that comes from Snap Confine.
Yeah. There it is. Ubuntu Core Launcher is
Right.
what it's called. So, yeah, I don't know which package provides Ubuntu Core Launcher. I can find out. Yeah, it's called Ubuntu Core Launcher. So I'd imagine we would need to have something non-Ubuntu specific there. Yeah, I'd not noticed that one. Good spot, Andrew. But yeah, in general, we are genericizing the names of everything so that it's not Ubuntu specific, so that it's clearly an upstream project, not specifically Ubuntu. Obviously, it originated here, and we drove the development for the most part so far. But it's certainly, if you spot any more of those occurrences of Ubuntu inside or Ubuntuisms, I would think we probably know about them. But if not, we should file a bug and make sure that they're made more generic for other distros. Next question. Blue Beady Bear asks, is there a possibility for Canonical to make React Native compatible with Ubuntu? I have no idea what React Native is.
Same here. Usually it's a good idea, and what people did in the past was to get in touch with the people who provide the software. So I still remember there was one initiative where people mailed people from Adobe to port stuff to Linux. I think that's usually the best option.
Oh, it's a JavaScript framework for building apps.
Okay.
I think from Facebook, by the look of it. Yeah, if you know someone who has used it and used it intensely, then yeah, it could be useful to package up. I don't know how it needs to be made compatible with Ubuntu. It probably already is, because it's a JavaScript framework that probably just runs in a in a browser context. Daniel L asks, any chance Microsoft Office Suite will come to Ubuntu by 2020, since Canonical works with Microsoft now? So Microsoft's a massive company. They have lots of divisions, and we work with bits of Microsoft on certain specific things. So it's not like we walk into their offices and we're talking to one set of teams and then we could just stroll over to the Microsoft Office guys and start telling them what to do. It really doesn't work like that. Yeah, I don't know that Microsoft Office would work on Linux. It may well be. Microsoft seem quite Linux friendly at the moment, so maybe that will happen. I don't know, but I think that probably has to be driven from their side. They're a tiny bit bigger than us. T. Bran asks, is it possible to build a snap out of a deb which works only on Ubuntu 14.04? So you've got, if I understand the question, you've got software that's in a Debian package that only works on 14.04, and you want to make that work on a snap-based system. I think that might be tricky. Some will work fine because they're maybe they don't have many platform dependencies. But I suspect anything that depends on like libc or the version of Python or the version of anything else. I mean, I'm getting the implication by you saying it only works on 14.04 probably implies that you've tried it on 16.04 and it doesn't work. So if it doesn't work on 16.04, chances are it won't work as a snap on 16.04. It might be possible to bundle in whatever library it depended on in 14.04 into a snap. So actually you're running on the 14.04 binary with 14.04 libraries on a 16.04 system. That might be possible. It depends if those libraries then depend on anything that's, only in 14.04. It would be an interesting exercise to try. I'd be interested to know what it is that doesn't work on 16.04. I imagine it's some third-party thing that they haven't released a version for 16.04, or it's something unmaintained or something. But yeah, give us a shout. I'd be interested to know what it is and if we can help. More questions incoming. We have 20 minutes left, so get your questions in. Simon asks, what's going on with Canonical and LibreOffice? It's like the most broad question I have ever seen on this Q&A.
I think everything's fine.
Yeah, I don't know what context that question is. Let's say it's to do with LibreOffice snaps, because that's what we're talking about a lot. Yeah, Bjorn is a Canonical guy who works on LibreOffice, and he's been making LibreOffice snaps, and I think he's been making release candidate ones as well, so you can try out new versions of LibreOffice without messing up the version of LibreOffice you already have installed, which is a great use case for snaps. So yes, that's one good thing that's going on with Canonical and LibreOffice. Next question. When we have an Ubuntu phone in the US, yes, see previous question. What is the something you wish should be improved in the Ubuntu phone? Something technical, not the way things work, like the above question. What do you think, Daniel?
I think for me it's speed and technical. The way things work, like sometimes I could just imagine like a quicker workflow for things. Sometimes it feels like I'm tapping around quite a bit. I think that's it. But I'm usually happy with any phone. So
I went away on a road trip at the weekend, and I took my trusty, where has it gone? Here it is. I took my trusty E4.5 with me, and I had it loaded up with about 250 songs, and we plugged it into the car stereo in the car and just set it on shuffle play of all these songs, and it was a playlist that all three of the people in the car had collaborated on. So we'd all like contributed music, put it all on the phone, and then just started playing and just let it, play one track after the other. And we were away for 3 days. So we started on Thursday morning, and by midway through Saturday, the battery on the phone was at 50%. So for like 3 days, it had been solidly playing music. So I used to say battery life, but I don't think battery life's a problem for some use cases. I think I'd agree. I think speed. I think the one thing that I know people always do when you hand them a phone is they start swiping up and down with their thumb, and they start swiping left and right. And sometimes the Ubuntu phone jitters a little bit in like scrolling in both directions. So I think speed would be the one thing. Make it like super fast, super slick. That would be lovely. Please make that happen, Daniel. Thank you very much. Simon asks, how do I apply at Canonical? I assume that's, and there's a big grinning smiley face. I assume that means career-wise. And the answer is you go to your favorite search engine and you type in Canonical Careers, and you scroll down until you find the right hit, which is canonical.com/careers/all vacancies or something like that. You find a job you want and you press apply. You fill in the form and wait. Next question. Simon asks, what email client do you use and why? Daniel?
Using Thunderbird. Used it for a few years. I'm sometimes using Mutt on the server as well. That's about it.
I use Gmail in a browser, but if I am on a dodgy connection, I might use Mutt. Or if I'm remote, I might use Mutt as well. I quite like Mutt. Mutt is cool and fast. Someone else, what's the status of the Snappy Playpen? Is awesome a status? I think it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So awesome is the answer. If you had to choose a favorite flavor besides vanilla Ubuntu, what would it be? Oh, well, what flavor? If you weren't running Ubuntu Unity, what would you be running, Daniel?
Unity 8 at some stage.
Ha! Good answer. I like the way you're thinking. So I have Ubuntu with Unity on most of my machines. The one exception is a ThinkPad I have on my desk, which I will show you here. This glorious ThinkPad here runs Ubuntu Mate, as if you couldn't tell from the sticker, and it's a something old T40 something. X61. Hooray! Very old, and it runs Ubuntu Mate perfectly. So if I wasn't running Ubuntu with Unity, I would probably run Mate. What's next?
Simon wants to know in which rooms we are. So I'm in a co-working space, and this is the small conference room. Not too exciting, very small, but it's quiet since people next door, they're all chatting on the phone or, organizing stuff. So that's why I'm sitting here.
Awesome. Do I risk lifting up my laptop and waving it? I'm in my den, which is also my kids' playroom. So there's mess everywhere. So I'm instead going to point out the window and say, look, I've got sunlight coming in through the window. And that's as far as you get in.
Creative chaos. That's what it is, right?
So there's a picture, cartoon that I've seen where someone talks about cleaning their room, and they create a cone of clean out from there. Like everything's pushed like there. So everything you see here is fine. Anything just there, and there is not. That's this room right now. Simon asks, have you ever used any other Unix distribution? I have. So in a previous job, I used to use Red Hat Linux because I was administering giant SAP systems, and they were running with Oracle and Red Hat Linux. I couldn't tell you what version of Red Hat. It was a long time ago. And in another customer, I was using IBM's AIX on their big systems. Whatever they're called, the big black IBM boxes, whatever they're called.
Mainframes?
Not mainframes. They were like just giant, like, I don't know, big things. And that was AIX, and I used HPUX as well. And I think that's all of them. I don't think I've used any others. I might have used SCO Unix for like 5 minutes, but I did wash my hands afterwards, so that's okay. What about you, Danny?
A few, like in university, there were a few machines where we had accounts, but I can't remember what they were running. I remember that at some stage I tried to install 1 or 2 different BSDs, but that's about it.
Yeah, I think I might have tried a BSD. Yeah, but didn't really get on with it. So, when I was at college, the computers I had were they were a computer system which is no longer around, and it was called Prime, and the operating system on it was called Prime OS. And if you ever Google it, it's PR1ME, Prime with a 1 in the middle. But yeah, that was good fun. Oh, I'm showing my age now. Move on. What's next?
I think it's Michael R. asking, is there a list of correspondence between SDK version and OTA? For example, SDK 1504.4 corresponding to OTA 11. I seem to remember there was some spreadsheet somewhere that was linked to from somewhere on developer Ubuntu.com, but I can't remember off the top of my head where it is.
I don't think I've seen anything that correlates those two. All I've ever seen is like, well, no, I haven't seen anything that answers the question that you're asking. No, it would be nice if we had such a thing. I agree.
Maybe bring it up on the Ubuntu-app-devel mailing list. I think we really should have something like this.
Yeah. We've got 10 minutes left, so get your questions in. We often run out of time rather than running out of questions. Sid asks, what is still to be done in Unity 8 to become the default? Oh, gosh. Well, you tell us. Try running it and use it as your daily driver and look for the things that are missing and let us know what it is that's missing, because we know about some things like certain window behaviors and other typical use cases of a desktop, but there might be things that you do on a regular basis that don't work in Unity 8 or work weirdly, or are just plain broken. So really, I would say now is a good time to start testing Unity 8. You can actually install Xenial or Yakety and log into a Unity 8 session. So you don't have to, completely destroy a machine in order to use Unity 8. You can just install Ubuntu, log into a Unity 8 session, and then use Unity 8, for a day, and record your experiences and write a blog about it, or write it up as some kind of document somewhere and share that with us, and we can learn from that.
Yeah, and if you want to file bugs, you can use the Unity 8-desktop tag, because that's what's used for desktop use of Unity 8, and maybe your bug is already filed. Like, there are quite a few known issues, and they're being worked on.
Cool. Nick011 asks, what do you think about the new iPhone with no headphone jack? Kind of reminds me of when I first bought a laptop that had no serial port on it. And I thought, oh my God, this is ludicrous. How am I ever going to work with a laptop without a serial port? And then I bought a USB to serial dongle, and I used that. And then over time, I just stopped using it because there's nothing I ever connect to that has a serial port on it anymore. So it's one of those, it's the uncomfortable transition between the old and the new. And sometimes you need an adapter. After a while, everyone forgets about it. Like, before there was USB, there were parallel ports and serial ports and CGA ports and, all this kind of stuff. Things move on. I think people get far too upset about changing connectors. Like, stuff changes. Also, it's an iPhone, so I don't care. Sid also asks, there have been talks about the possibility of creating your own aggregator scope while you're on the phone, just dragging that service you want combined. What's the status about this neat feature? I would love to customize some scopes myself. Ooh, I've not heard about this feature.
You need them.
One for David Calais, I think. He knows about these things.
Can we skip the hard question?
Yeah, let's just skip that and pretend that never happened. Next question. Stephen B. What features are you excited about for the 16.10 release? So I'm quite interested in Unity 8 in 16.10 and testing that and using it more robustly. I try and stick to the LTS releases on my own main laptop all the time. And then at some point in the cycle, some shiny thing makes me decide to upgrade, and then maybe later I regret it and reinstall back to the LTS because I like the stability of the LTS. But I'm really looking forward to trying Unity 8 on something more powerful than an ARM-based phone. I want to actually use it productively on a Core i7 with loads of RAM to see how it works with a normal desktop environment rather than just a phone UI. And I realize I can already do that in 16.04, but obviously 16.10 will have newer stuff, so that's good. Next question. Sid asks, 2 years back, there were talks about the inability for messaging, GPS apps, Telegram, etc. to run in the background. Canonical wanted to provide services for these kinds of things. What's the status about this? So there were a big list of use cases that were compiled, and as I understand it, the person responsible, the architect of these things, Thomas Voss, is working through each of those use cases one by one, picking the most important ones at the top. Any more questions?
Simon wants to know what a typical workday looks like for us.
It looks like a terminal window with IRC in it. It looks like a browser with loads of Google Docs and Trello and email and Hangouts is what it looks like for me.
Yeah, it's very similar here. Usually a text editor as well, some build running somewhere, stuff in the calendar. But what I really like about my job is that not every day is the same. Like there's always crazy new stuff coming in, or there's some conflict somewhere and you need to talk to somebody on the phone, or you need to organize something else, or do something completely new, like, I don't know, write a document where the terms of entry for some contest are defined, and then talk to the legal team about it, and think about stuff you never thought about. So it's every day is different somehow.
It is. The tools I use are the same, but the way we use them are very different every day. Yeah, absolutely. I've lost where we are. Nick asks, is there anyone who has more phones than Popey? And are they sit-proof? Yeah, I've learned not to put phones in my back pocket after the great MX4 explosion, buttock explosion of last year. So, yeah, I don't do that. I don't have that many phones, I don't think. He says, looking at 6 on his desk. But, yeah, I like phones. What's next?
Somebody wants to know about current affairs, but I guess we can skip that one.
Yes. Paganini asks, why isn't the Miracast Ethercast going to be implemented in the BQ Aquarius E 4.5? So for those who don't know, this is a feature in the Pro 5, which you can press a button and stream your desktop to an HDMI dongle, and it works pretty well on this. It doesn't work on any of the previous devices, and I believe there's 2 reasons for that. One is it's quite CPU intensive to do, and so this being quite a powerful phone, it can cope, whereas the E4.5 is a significantly less powerful phone and probably wouldn't cope. But I think the other reason is that some of the underlying components that are used depend on a newer version of the kernel, a newer version of Android kernel that we use, which the BQ and the MX4 don't have. And they would require backporting a whole load of stuff. And I think Simon, the guy who worked on this, has provided all the patches. So if someone wanted to try and do this, or create a newer version of Android kernel for the BQ E4.5, that could possibly bring the 2 together. But I don't foresee that happening anytime soon unless some community person gets on board with that. Mario Grip says it's not the kernel, it's a newer version of the Android HAL. I knew he would know. So there you go. It's something Android-y, hand-wavy bits in Android. So we've exhausted all the questions and all our time. Thank you, everyone, for asking your awesome questions. We had loads. Remember to watch again next week. Just go to the Ubuntu On Air YouTube channel, or you can follow us on Twitter, Google+, or Facebook. If you want to ask your questions up front, jump in the Ubuntu On Air IRC channel and paste them all in, or paste a document that links to them, or a GitHub branch, or whatever you want. You figure it out. But someone will be back next week at 1500 UTC. Join us next week. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you, Alan. Thanks, everyone.
Cheerio. Have a good week.